All right, catch you later, Walt. I'm going for a walk.
You sure?
Yes? Why, is there a reason I shouldn't go for a walk?
No, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, I will.
I'll miss you, James.
See, now that sounds like there's something weird going on, or there's something going to happen to me if I go.
Look, you go wherever you want to go. Walking, just, maybe pack a towel. Or 3.
3 towels? What are you on about? What could I possibly need 3 towels for? We don't even own 3 towels. We share one.
Nothing, James. It's just good to be prepared.
You're all sweaty, more than usual. Oh, rain. You were worried about the rain. You could have just told me to bring an umbrella. All right, I'm actually leaving now. Catch you later, you weirdo.
Yeah, see you, James. Just rain. Yep. Definitely nothing purple or full of poo, and before you get back, I definitely won't need to dispose of 14 dragon fruit peels. Again.
What?
Look, it was strange when it happened the other day, and it's still strange now.
There's sometimes that living with you gets to me.
The purple poo is one of those times.
Yeah,
Yep, that's fair.
Getting home and you're just covered in like a weird, like fluorescent pink juice. And just,
yeah.
I just accept it
Look,
these days.
I do just secrete that, to be fair.
That's just the color of your sweat.
Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP, brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast, where everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. I'm your host, Walt.
Good accent, good
Thanks.
pronunciation.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, Commander players. I'm the one with the beard, James. Just simple distinction.
I cannot grow one.
Well, it's fun. I realize when I listen to podcasts, this is something I'm not sure if our listeners have the same thing. Of like, I listen to the 2 hosts, and then I'll see like promotional pictures or like our thumbnails with both hosts, and I won't know who is who.
I mean, we do stream, to be fair, so I
That's
guess
true.
people are a little bit familiar with the faces.
But like, I just realized if no one actually knows, I'm the one with the beard.
Yeah, and I've got the long hair and the really weird face.
Yeah. Some would call it kissable, some call it punchable. Depends on where you sit.
Depends on the facial expression I'm pulling as well, to be fair. Before we get to the transmission, I wanted to highlight something we haven't talked about in a little while, which is our TikTok account.
This is something we haven't logged into in a little while. Walt.
I'm saying TikTok. I guess I also mean YouTube Shorts and
Instagram Reels.
We do tend to upload when we upload to TikTok. We upload everywhere. We do have one, and I want to highlight it because we're going to start uploading there more frequently than we currently are, including, and I'm not going to give a timeline on this, but including some highlights from some of your favorite episodes of Get Commanded. So they'll be like sort of animated in the style that some of the videos you might have already seen have been done. They're going to be happening much more frequently than they used to.
Yeah, thanks to our wonderful supporters on Patreon, we're actually able to kind of source some actual proper editing skills from people, which we'll hopefully be able to post pretty frequently, depending on like, you know, budget restraints and timings and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Walt and I realized that this is a platform that reaches a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it would make all of those weird shenanigans that you just heard, like at the start of the episodes, look really good as well.
Yeah. And look, like the algorithm is pretty brutal on these platforms. So if you can't, you know, financially support the podcast on Patreon or something like that, if you just are following us on one of those platforms, that helps. And if one of those videos pops up, you just like it and watch it for like 10 seconds. The algorithm goes, this must be good content. We're going to put it in front of more people. So little stuff like that might not feel like it makes much of a difference. The algorithms are pretty brutal and actually do care about the way that you use your clicks and comments and views and that kind of thing.
We appreciate your eyes and your ears.
Yes.
And your hearts. Really.
Yes.
That's the one we really care about.
That's it though.
Yeah.
The rest of your body we could do without.
Head,
to be honest.
shoulders, knees and toes.
Kind of
mid.
sick of it.
Yeah.
You could, in fact,
get rid of them.
Get rid of them.
Yeah. You know, like how
we'll get rid of them for you.
Brothers Grimm, Cinderella your toes. That was really visceral. I apologize. We've got a command for this week, don't we?
We do. There's an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
Planeswalkers comprise some of Magic the Gathering's most powerful cards, but this power is not typically transferred into the Commander format.
Are we doing a deep dive on a card type?
I guess we are.
Interesting.
Just straight up, Planeswalkers and how their power is not typically transferred into the Commander format. So I guess we're evaluating Planeswalkers is kind of the vibe I'm getting from this.
You can consider this Planeswalkers, a review by Walt and James.
Maybe that'll be the name of the episode.
We'll just go through them alphabetically. Yeah. Let's start with Ajani.
All 10. No,
Yep.
How many? God, they probably have more than 10 Ajanis at this point.
Yeah,
They're about
probably.
to print a flip one.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw
the Modern Horizon 3 spoilers.
Yeah.
Dude, the Ralzarek one is the one that I'm
That one
excited
looks cooked.
for.
You're building that, right?
God, yes, I am. Are you
should.
kidding?
You should.
That set
definitely.
is going to be just bonkers broken.
I feel like we should do the typical thing of like starting with like a very wide lens of looking at this. So
Yeah.
I think we should just like at least touch on how good Planeswalkers are in general in Magic. Because
Well-
obviously Commander is a multiplayer 100 card singleton format. That's not how most Magic is played. Most Magic is 60 card Magic, 1v1, not singleton.
Yeah, and like the Planeswalkers alluded to it. Like, Planeswalkers are some of the most powerful cards. Like, when
Yeah.
Planeswalkers were printed, it shifted Magic, like, into,
Yeah.
okay, this is like, you know, the, what do they call it? The 5? What did they call the 5? It was like Jace.
Fingers.
No, the
Gatewatch?
5. Yeah, but no, it wasn't. They didn't.
Oh.
They had a name for
Oh,
it.
the something 5. They were called the something 5.
The
What?
Fantastic, the Furious 5 from Kung Fu Panda. I can't remember what they
They had a name
but
for
it was
them,
like
yeah.
Jace and Chandra and like
Jace, Chandra,
Ajani,
Ajani,
Liliana, and Garrick.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nissa wasn't.
They
Nissa
were the
wasn't
OG
cool enough.
5.
Yeah.
They're called the something 5. I know what you're talking
Oh
about.
my God, listeners!
They were the
please, for
original
the love of God,
Planeswalkers.
help us. I do know this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But like those 5 Planeswalkers, you know, like people were, you know, really hyped around them. And the other thing was it created a very big branding opportunity for Magic. I mean, like,
the shift in the story, right? Like
God, yeah.
suddenly there's 5 characters who can be on any plane at any given time,
Yep.
theoretically, right? Like their spark gives them the ability to be anywhere. And so suddenly you have continuity across Ixalan and also Dominaria and also everywhere, really.
Literally everywhere. And like, I think, you know, like Jace being the poster boy for Magic for such a long time,
Yeah.
you know, there's good reason for that. Like the branding opportunity that these characters create, both lore-wise in-game and how powerful they were in Magic. Like, if you've not seen it on Ristic Studies' YouTube channel, there's a video on the Jace the Mind Sculptor card.
I was going to mention Chase the Mind Sculptor. Like, this card warped basically magic around him.
Yeah.
He was that powerful.
He was known as the Boogeyman. Like,
Yeah.
that is just... like, it's kind of wild how just one type of card can complete... Like, we've had new types of... Like, Battles didn't do this.
No.
Like, no way. Battles, like, okay, cool mechanic. They've introduced some, like, really cool things. Some of them have become staples, even in the CDH format. Like, you know, the Invasion of Ikoria, that battle,
Yeah,
that's
that's the
a new...
tutor. It's
It's
the
a new...
non-humans, right? Yeah.
It's basically a new...
Quarter calling.
Quarter calling.
Yeah.
But that... Who talks about that in the same way that Planeswalkers are so influential?
Yeah, I think it's gotten to a point where it's also become sort of saturated, right? Like, they have had such an influence that the individual influence of any given Planeswalker is actually kind of less now because they're so ubiquitous. And, like, they've even said, like, R&D have said that they are actively going to print fewer Planeswalkers.
Well,
There'll be sort of one per set.
I think they've said only one per set. Like in Wilds of Eldraine, it was Ashiok.
Yeah.
I can't actually remember who the...
Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Who did they...
Oko. It was the...
Oh, it was Oko. Yeah, the new Oko.
God,
Yeah.
he's a sexy, sexy man.
He is.
Yeah, but like, you know, even those Planeswalkers, I think they're specifically down-powering them because they've seen how warped
Yes.
standard and
Standard,
modern
yeah,
can
yeah.
be like made around them. Pioneer, I'm not too familiar with that format,
No.
but like it's clear that in these 60 card constructed 1v1 formats, a busted Planeswalker can just take over.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing you've got to keep in mind when you're comparing these formats to Commander is like, all right, in a 1v1, you have to defend your Planeswalker against one player, right? There's one player who's probably trying to kill either you and or your Planeswalker, and they'll have to choose between the two of them. If you just, like, have 5 blocks and someone has 4 attackers, like, the likelihood that they get through to your Planeswalker is pretty low, right? Unless they can give it trample or flying or something. But as soon as you start to put this same scenario, like, let's say, like, in fact, let's be really specific. Every player in the game has 2 creatures that are 2/2s, right? In a 1v1...
So someone's playing the new spoiled the bear commander from On Horizons 3.
Kuro or whatever his name is.
The Kudo bear.
Yeah.
It's Ayula's husband.
Yes.
That's who it is.
Big time.
Love that.
But yes, let's say that everyone controls 2 2/2s, exactly.
Sure.
If it's a 1v1 game, your Planeswalker is safe, right? Assuming there's no keywords, no combat tricks and stuff, you've got 2 blocks, they've got 2 attacks, they're not attacking your Planeswalker, it's going to get uptick, downtick, whatever you want.
Yep.
If we do literally that exact scenario again, but we're in Commander now.
Or every player has 2
Every
2/2s.
player has 2/2s. Like, now the maths is different, right? You have 2 blockers. There are 6 attackers in total for your Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Even if all that happens on the first turn, like, you pass the turn, someone attacks with their 2/2s, you block them both. Cool, you got no blockers now. Like, the Planeswalkers are just so much easier to kill in Commander.
I mean, like, yes, you're basically saying, you know, this is a card that you have to specifically attack, because if you don't, it's powerful. Like, it will become too powerful because Planeswalkers have those ultimate abilities.
Yes.
But the design of Planeswalkers was made in a way that, because, again, Magic is a resource management game. Your attacks are a resource. You are now choosing where to allocate your attacks.
Yeah, can I kill the player, or is it more important that I kill the Planeswalker now?
For longevity in the game.
Yeah, how much longer is this game going to go? Does the Planeswalker need to die now, or can I kill it next turn?
Or can I just kill the player and then it doesn't matter?
Yeah.
Like, it's a resource allocation problem. And when you're in a 1v1v1v1 format, I actually think you should look at it in the context of Planeswalkers as a 1v3.
Yeah.
Because you have to think, like, okay, I'm going to put this card down that is specifically designed to make my opponents actively use their resources, otherwise I'll get advantage.
Oh, and, like, basically, are there any Planeswalkers on the ban list? No. Every Planeswalker that has ever been printed is legal in Commander. So, in terms of the heights of power you can reach in a Commander game, of how good that Planeswalker is, and consequently, how keen to kill it your opponents are going to be. Like, if you drop Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and, you know, let's say you downtick and kill a bunch of the board, they're still going to be like, oh my god, that thing at the very least upticks and bolts us every turn.
Yeah,
like, someone's got to
that.
kill that now, and probably yesterday as well.
If someone can travel back in time, get Teferi. Let's call Teferi. He can Planeswalkers back in time.
Oh, Teferi vs. Ugin, that'd be a fun set.
That would be an epic battle.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
I would be keen to see that.
R&D.
Yeah. I do think as a result of this problem of the 1v3 that you're talking about, I am of the opinion that probably Planeswalkers are still slightly overplayed in general in Commander.
Okay.
I think they are so much weaker than they are in other formats. I'm not saying they're unplayable, and we're going to go into which ones we like and why we like them a bit later in the episode. But certainly, I still feel there are players out there who are playing these Planeswalkers when they should be focusing on sorceries and instants and creatures and other card types.
Or even enchantments. Like, you know, like Planeswalkers for static abilities are just like, you know, weird, fragile enchantments.
Yeah,
Look,
basically.
I think I agree with you that they're overplayed, but I think some are overplayed, and I also think that some are underplayed, or maybe I'm going to reword that into some aren't experimented with enough. Because I think that there's a lot of us in the format that have the same opinion that you just outlined of, like, commanders are like, Commander is just a 1v3 for Planeswalkers, so it makes it very challenging. So I'm not even going to bother trying this new Planeswalker.
Okay.
And I think that, I mean, it's interesting. I was on, you know, Scryfall and the other day just kind of flicking through because I'm looking at that new Orzhov Affinity for Planeswalkers commander that came out at Murders of Karlov Manor.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
Is it Kambal? Is it Kambal?
No, not Kambal.
It's Tomic. It's Tomic.
Tomic.
It's Ral's husband.
Yeah. So it makes sense that he's got affinity for Planeswalkers.
That's actually quite cute.
He quite likes Ral.
He
I don't
really
know if you
likes
knew
Ral. But yeah, I was like having a look at some Planeswalkers and I was like, wow, I've never seen this at a commander table. Or full stop, I've actually never seen this commander.
Neither have I, actually.
I wonder what kind of effect this would have on a game if you could defend this or if you could keep this up.
Yeah.
The thing that I think about when I think of Planeswalkers the most, though, is how much of a trap they are for new players in Commander.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Like, I think the people who are most likely to overplay them are people who see Planeswalkers probably in other formats like Standard, or they play them in Draft.
Or they're playing them on Arena.
Yeah. And they look at them and go, oh my god, this card's amazing. I get to do something every single turn.
Yeah.
And then they're building their first Commander deck or their third Commander deck, and they're going, oh my god, I'm just going to put these in. Like, I know how good they are. And yeah, I think in those circumstances, people are being too kind to the Planeswalkers. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe the player base at large is too anti-Planeswalker.
I think, yeah,
in general.
Like, experienced players are very anti-Planeswalker in Commander. Like, there's a couple of exceptions, obviously. But like, yeah, I think for new players, they fall into this trap of going, wow, this is a mythic rare. And it's the main character on the box of the set. It's got to be the best card in the game.
Or even just like, I think there's a thing that happens a lot where people see cards that are expensive or are played a lot in a particular format and go, that must be good in Commander. And there's just a fully different set of priorities that people who are evaluating cards for Commander look at. And there's a reason that there's really, really strange, weird cards that people only play in Commander and then cards that people don't play from Standard in Commander as well.
Exactly. Should we talk about the caveat, though?
There's a pretty big asterisk next to everything we've just said.
There's a big butt.
Yeah.
A massive, voluptuous butt here.
It's Ralzrex butt. No, it's...
Ralzrex butt.
It's very Homer Simpson of you.
Very homosexual of me as well. We're talking about Super Friends decks.
Like how James and Ralzarek are super friends.
Just friends.
Just friends.
Don't ask.
With benefits. So Super Friends decks, they break all the rules. Look, I think that if you're building a Super Friends deck, for those who don't know, this is the term people use to describe a deck that is built around Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
You'll see people build like Atraxa, the one that says beginning of your end step, proliferate. That Atraxa, people will just build as many Planeswalkers as they possibly can with the goal that in the end step they proliferate all the Planeswalkers, blah, blah, blah.
Or some will build Sisse, where they can tutor the Planeswalkers out of their deck.
Because all Planeswalkers are legendary, so you can tutor them. Yeah. So look, I think there's a few reasons that Super Friends decks break all the rules. Namely, a lot of them play ways that you can ultimate a Planeswalker immediately. Deep Glow Skate kind of things.
Doubling Season.
Doubling Season's a big one. Even the newer Vorinclex from Kaldheim will do the same thing. I think that Super Friends decks defend them a lot better. They usually play like loads of board wipes in a Super Friends deck. If you every like Wrath of God style, destroy all creatures.
Yeah.
If you're playing Super Friends, you might have like a creature or two and 5 Planeswalkers. If you just like board wipe, it's like cool. I get a whole maybe 2 turns with these Planeswalkers with nobody gets to interrupt me. I also think
they play all the propaganda Ghostly Prison style effects as well. That just makes it harder to attack.
Those don't work. There's
Sphere of Safety.
Sphere of Safety works. Propaganda and that don't. But yeah, there's ways to make it so Planeswalkers are hard to attack.
That's right. I always forget Ghostly Prison actually says you can attack Planeswalkers without paying to.
Yeah.
You just can't attack the player.
Yeah. Weird. It's only Sphere of Safety, I think, that of those kind of style effects that says Planeswalkers as well.
Interesting.
But I think, and they also tend to synergize with the deck. I mentioned Atraxa and Proliferate.
Yeah.
You're normally going to play a lot of ways in a Planeswalker deck to proliferate because that's going to add a loyalty counter everywhere. You're going to be playing the stuff like Vorinclex that means you add multiple loyalty counters. There's even what's that sort of newer? There's that like black-green legendary creature that says like it's phrased so weirdly. It's like loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers cost +1 loyalty more to activate. Yeah. It's worded in a way where it's like, so it's worse? Like it sounds like it costs more.
But the cost of activating a Planeswalker ability is putting the counter on it.
Yes.
Which is really bizarre.
It's bizarre specifically because this card is like, it costs 1 more to activate. And what it actually does is you can downtick a Planeswalker, it downticks by 1 less.
So it's 0 to
if it's like downtick by 1 and you've got this card out, then it's 0.
Or if it's 2, you'll only have to downtick it by 1 because it costs +1 more.
Upticking by 3, instead it'll be 4. Anyway, it's all really weird.
If you're not at least a little bit of a fan of maths, you shouldn't play Magic.
And certainly not Planeswalkers.
Yeah, 100%.
Look, so I think the rest of this episode will be devoted to talking about decks that aren't Super Friends decks. There are things that are good in Super Friends decks that aren't good in the rest of the time. I'm talking about Planeswalkers.
And we'll definitely cover Super Friends in like a deck archetypes episode down the line. But I think we should, for the purposes of looking at Commander as a whole, we should look at general Commander decks.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too. I am obsessed with stats at the moment.
I
as
knew
you
it.
know, it's going to be stats again.
Go on. Who plays more Planeswalkers? Go on. Who's the big dum-dum that's playing more Planeswalkers?
Not big dum-dum. Small dum-dum. You're just a little guy.
Just a little guy from last
6'1". Yeah, all right. The throwback. You're all happy, I'm sure, out there. Maybe. I don't know.
That caused discussion in our
I know.
Discord. Was that last week?
Other 6'1" people being like, my headcanon is also that I'm a little guy. Props to all of you out there.
Thanks all the Discord peeps.
Yeah,
We love you.
Live your dreams. Look, I just did a little bit of stats looking. I looked at the 10 decks that I know you are like playing that are on your Mox field. Again, I don't have access to your Zexara deck.
That has a Planeswalker in it.
It does? Okay, there you go.
It's got the X blue and a green Nissa.
It's
a really stupid Planeswalker, but it's really an X-cast.
It's an X-cast. It makes sense. So yeah, I looked at the 10 decks and not Zexara. So you can bump up your numbers slightly when we look at this.
Sure.
And I looked at my 15 decks. I didn't count Thrifty Incarnate because I have never featured Planeswalker on Thrifty Thursdays before, so I could not have played a Planeswalker even if I wanted to. Yeah, it would be illegal.
Well, you could, but when you cast it, you lose
I would
the
lose
game.
the game because of the way that card works. So, of your 10 decks, 5 of your decks, so half of them, had 0 Planeswalkers in them.
Okay.
So half. Yep. You had 1 Planeswalker in 3 decks.
Wow.
30%.
Sure.
And then you had 1 deck with 3 Planeswalkers and 1 deck with 5 Planeswalkers.
Pretty sure I know which one that is. I think it's Phylath.
It is Phylath.
Yeah.
It's got, because you've got Renin 7, you've got Xenagos the Reveler.
I've also got Nissa Who Shakes the World.
Yes, you do.
Garruk, Primal Hunger.
I think so.
Is that all 5?
That's
Have we mentioned
4.
5?
I can't recall what the other one is. There's another one in there somewhere.
Is it Renin 6?
No, Renin 7 you have.
Yeah,
you don't have Renin 6.
Don't have Renin 6?
No, Renin 6 is the like 2 mana, like $30 one.
Yeah, but I think
Do you have that? Maybe you do.
I think I had it in the deck at one point.
Okay, I'm not sure. Anyway.
I spent way too much money on Magic.
That was a while ago. So yeah, half of your decks contain at least 1 Planeswalker, and then some of them contain a lot more than 1 Planeswalker.
Yeah, 5 in one deck. When we started talking about this, I was like, wow, my Phylath deck has a lot, but there's good reasons for it.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, I mean, I actually didn't pull the numbers here, but I think probably your average would be close to 1 of Planeswalkers because the 5, the outliers are dragging it up. Yep. Yeah, but like maybe more like 0.5. Of my 15 decks, I had 0 Planeswalkers in 10 of my decks.
Yep.
I had 1 Planeswalker in 4 decks, which I included in this number. I have an Estra the Masked deck.
Well, that's your commander.
The commander is a Planeswalker. I thought that counted. Though.
Yeah,
it's in the deck.
If anything, it counts more. You built the whole deck.
The whole
around
deck's
it.
around that Planeswalker. Yeah, that is a deck that plays Sphere of Safety. Very good in that deck.
Yeah, that is good.
And then I had 2 Planeswalkers in 1 deck. Okay. So I think it's interesting here that I definitely 66% of my decks contain no walkers at all. So I'm definitely playing like a lot more of my decks are just completely Planeswalker free.
And over half of mine do.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, exactly half of yours.
Well, no, because it's Zaxara.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, more than half of yours do. Yeah. And also that when I do play Planeswalkers, seems like I tend to play fewer of them as well, which is interesting. What do you reckon? What's happening here? Do you think in terms of how me and you play Commander?
It's funny because the second you said that you'd done stats, my brain immediately went to, oh my god, my Phylath deck plays 5 Planeswalkers.
Really? Okay.
I was like, I knew that my Phylath deck has a lot of Planeswalkers, and there's reasons for it. That deck has a doubling season in it because it synergizes with +1 counters, tokens.
So Phylath, for those who don't know, is like the commander Avenger of Zendikar. So landfall, you put 4 +1 counters on a plant. So with doubling season down, doubling season's doubly good, haha.
Because it makes double the tokens.
It does also make double the tokens.
And
so
double the +1
you
counters.
cast Phylath, you get twice as many 0/1 plants, and then landfall, put 8 counters on a plant. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, like having Nissa Who Shakes the World come in and and down tick.
Is that the one that fetches any number of forests? Is that one?
Yeah.
And then that's pretty sick.
It has the static as well that forests tap for an extra green as well, which is cracked.
Cooked.
Garruk Primal Hunger also, I know we always look at it as a 6 mana Life's Legacy effect.
Yes,
that
draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control.
And then it immediately dies. It comes in with 3 loyalty. That down tick costs 3.
Yeah.
But do you remember what its actual ultimate is?
I do, because I had to track down the token because nobody owns one, because nobody ultimates him except maybe you.
Maybe me.
Which is you create a 6/6 worm for each land you control.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cooked.
Crazy. Like 6 mana, if you can ultimate that immediately with
5
doubling.
That
it's 5.
Garruk is 5.
2 and 3 green.
I mean, you have to have doubling season already. But 5 mana.
5 mana, and then with the condition of doubling season as well.
But whatever. Make 10 6/6s potentially.
Even more, dude. My 5 deck is easily going to get like to
12,
15
14
lands by the end of the game. Like that is game ending.
Yeah, that's sick.
So obviously like there's the combo side of it with like that deck specifically.
That makes a lot of sense
for
why you'd play 5 in there.
Yeah, but I think just generally, I'm a little bit more of a Timmy than you. And I think
you are too.
I think that has a lot to do with Planeswalkers and like the ceiling of a card. Like this could be really unbelievably broken if I get it off.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember that one game where I managed to protect the Tezzeret in my Tornos deck?
Oh, you got the emblem that says whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card.
That is just broken.
Yeah,
like,
that was insane.
What the actual hell?
I could not believe how much I had to convince everyone at that table how big of a threat you were.
After
you
that
ultimated, and I was like, okay, just so you know, guys, he can make 10 treasures and sacrifice them and draw 10 cards.
Man, that was a great game.
That was a good
I actually
game.
don't think I won though, because it was
I can't remember.
It was a while ago now.
You
but
came close, definitely.
But I think that the ceiling of these cards is just unbelievably broken. Like not just the ultimate, but like even sometimes just having, like for example, like that Tezzeret that I was talking about that makes artifacts costs, the activated ability of an artifact you costs 2 less the first time each turn.
Yep.
The ceiling of keeping that for a couple of rotations, great card advantage.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think both of us, I would say, build decks with hope. But but I think the hope looks slightly different, where I think your hope is to do with individual cards, where you look at a card and go like, in this particular sequence of the play.
I live in magical Christmas land, maybe a little bit too more.
I'm not saying you do, because I think I have hope in the synergies between cards. I go like, this card's not that good, but if I have this, and this...
Oh, that's magical Christmas land.
That's my magical Christmas land, is like having all the little pieces work together, whereas I feel like yours is like, no. If I just have this thing and this card... and I get to this particular board state, I'll win. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the Timmy way. I feel like my
ceiling of hope is higher than yours. Yours is like, I'll do something cool and intricate, and it'll be cute, and then I'll make like 4 goats. How cute is that? Whereas mine is like, I will make my friends cry at the beauty of the majesty of the machine god that I created.
I will make 16 6/6 worms, and I will give them haste. Yeah, definitely. I think I should also mention, in terms of why I'm lower on Planeswalkers than you, that a lot of the time that I was initially playing Magic, even though I wasn't taking it very seriously, I played from when I was about 6 until I was like, 19 or 20, very rarely but intermittently with my brother. Yeah. And for a good chunk of that time, Planeswalkers did not exist.
Yeah, you were playing before the dawn of the actual type.
Comfortably before. Like, I think the first Planeswalkers like 2007 or 8 or something.
Something like that.
I think so. The first 3 or 4 years that I played Magic, Planeswalkers just did not exist.
Yeah.
In fact, the first time we started playing Planeswalkers, because I just never got one, by the way.
Yeah, I remember you were like, what the is that?
I was like, there was cards that said like, deals this much damage to target creature or Planeswalker, and I was like, oh my god, you can deal that damage to a player. Because at the time that I was playing, the player was considered a Planeswalker.
Yeah, that was like the Planeswalker. Lore,
yeah. And so, and it's funny that I was confused in that way, because actually the reason that it says creature or Planeswalker these days is that it doesn't hit players.
Yeah.
It would say any target if it could hit players. Anyway, I just didn't grow up playing them. I didn't pull them in packs. I didn't have them in standard decks or anything like that. And so I think when I started building Commander decks, I was like, cool, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
so I won't play it.
I think, who was your first Planeswalker then? Because I feel like it might have been Tamio.
It was a gift. I think one of you got me a Jace.
It was a Jace?
I think you got me a Jace and a Tamio for one of my birthdays during lockdown.
Yeah, that... I
And it
remember
was
the
like
period of
a-
like giving cards, and I remember you
Yeah.
specifically saying you've never owned a Planeswalker, and I was like, oh, I'll buy him a Planeswalker.
You guys got me 2 Planeswalkers. You got me the Tamio that draws a card for each tapped creature, and it also like upticks to scry, I think.
That's right.
And you got me the Jace that upticks to like scry and then draw a card. It was at the time I was playing exclusively my Azor the Lawbringer deck.
So terrible cards.
They
to
were
buy
not
you.
very
They
good.
were fucking horrible.
Both of them were like fully 5-mana Planeswalkers that in other formats are probably pretty gas. Like Tamio, uptick, tap a creature, doesn't untap during its control's next untap step. That's so good on a Planeswalker in a 60 card format, but in Commander, this just doesn't matter.
I imagine it doesn't see play in any 60 card format at the moment, but
I don't
maybe
know.
when it was printed.
I remember like about a year ago, I had it in my binder and no one ever bought it off me because all the people I know are Commander players. And one day someone came in who was moving a bunch of cards and buying a bunch of cards from binders, and he was not a Commander player at all. He was like very much a 60 card Magic player, and he bought like 10 cards out of my binder because they must have been really good in other formats and nobody else was buying them. And one of them was that Tamio. So I don't know. Guy out there, if you could tell me what format you're playing that Tamio in.
Who definitely listens to this podcast.
That would be so sick.
I mean, look, I think that there's a few other reasons why I play Planeswalkers in my deck.
Sure.
Sometimes. I won't say that I'm doing this purposefully to like fully downpower the deck, but I think adding Planeswalkers to my decks does tend to bring that like ceiling down just a little bit. I mean, like sometimes obviously in the combo setting that I was talking about with Doubling Season can be pretty amazing. But like, for example, I run Ral Zarek in my Tornos deck just as an untapper to untap Tornos. And that, like, there are plenty of other untappers that I could use.
Sure.
But I decided to run that instead because there's a little bit of synergy in the deck because I also run Proliferation with charge counters.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit there. I'm not saying I specifically think that Planeswalkers downpower decks because I do have the synergy to support.
Sure. And it depends on the Planeswalker a lot as well, right? Like there are Planeswalkers who 100% up the power of a deck as well. But yeah, I think that the average power of a Planeswalker in Commander, I mean, it's like the Space Commander said, right? Like it's generally worse in Commander than it is in other places. So yeah, I think it's a totally valid way to lower the consistency of a deck because sometimes Planeswalkers do stuff. A lot of the time they don't do much at all. So that's a good way to like lower consistency, I think. Yeah. All right. That's fair.
Half an hour. I reckon it's time for a bit of a thrifty interlude.
I reckon it'll be time for a thrifty interlude as well. So we've got lots to talk about, including what makes a good Planeswalker, and we are going to give a list of our favorite Planeswalkers as well.
I'm really excited for that. But it is time for a thrifty interlude.
Yes.
So crack through the Omen paths and just stroll in the, what do they call that card with Omniscience? The Aether, the Void, that bit. You're just going to float in a void of Walt's weird voice talking about some random card.
You're really selling it. It sounds so fun.
I'm in a spinny chair and I'm like slowly spinning around. Ooh, I'm in space.
The gravity in the room has definitely declined immediately around James. He's warping the space.
I have that effect on a room.
So I gave you a little something about a thrifty card. As is tradition, I'll be performing, but this week, James joins me in performing a dialogue.
Ooh, I'm going to be in the card.
You are. James, do you want to read us the card we're featuring this week?
I sure do. It's Gix's Command. For 3 black and a black, you'll get a sorcery where you can choose 2. First option, put 2 +1 counters on up to 1 target creature. It gains lifelink until end of turn. Next option, destroy each creature with power 2 or less. Next option, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to hand. And a final option, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. I'm not sure he meant it.
Of course he meant it. It was broadcast live.
Well, he didn't sound right to me. He might have been drunk or a bit sleep deprived.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was sleep deprivation that caused Gix to tell us that the people who drowned on Segovia would have been fine if they just grew a healthy flagellum, and that we should try it sometime.
Well, I think a tail would be kind of nice, maybe. Like a party trick or an icebreaker.
You should investigate self-flagellation before I do it to you myself. Get budgeted!
Now that I understand the layers of that joke,
I explained it.
Before we performed that, Walt was like, you get this, right? And I'm like, I mean, it's Phyrexian, like, body morphic thing, right? And he's like, oh, that's layer 1.
Yeah.
Let's dive into this.
Let's talk about the history of the word flagella.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
It's a tale, but also flagellation is, like, whipping yourself.
Yes.
There's layers to that joke.
If you enjoy that, we release those. I
was about to say, don't
it's always me.
drag me into this. This is all you, buddy.
My brain releases these every Thursday in the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server, which is where we hang out with our play group. It's linked in the show notes. There's a Thrifty Thursdays channel where it comes out every week.
Yeah, on a Thursday, funnily enough.
I know, it's crazy how that happens.
Fucking wild if it happened on a Wednesday.
Can
That'd
you
be
believe
like, that? It would just throw people so off.
I can't believe that for the last 130 something weeks it's come out every Thursday.
I know who people that track their menstrual cycle with the Thrifty Thursday. We should get back into Planeswalkers,
on the fourth Thursday, there was blood. Sorry, I don't know.
Planeswalkers. Let's talk about Planeswalkers some more.
We've talked a lot about Planeswalkers being bad. I think we should talk about what it is that makes a good Planeswalker. Like the ones that we're playing. You talk about the ones you're playing in your decks. I haven't really mentioned the ones I played in my decks, but we should go into some of them, I think.
But we've also, like I said, that I think that a lot of them are not experimented with enough. So what should we be looking for when a new Planeswalker is printed to go, can we experiment with this in Commander?
Yeah.
Is there a possible slot for it?
Look, we've mentioned this sort of in a much shorter form on the podcast before, but there's 3 categories I reckon you can sort good Planeswalkers into.
Yeah.
But they all kind of boil down to this one question, which is, what is the immediate impact on the board? So in other words, if the only turn I get to use this Planeswalker is the one where it comes down, and again, we're assuming you're not a Super Friends deck who can proliferate or deep close skate or something like that.
Sure, the average Commander deck.
Yeah, the average Commander deck, it's coming down this turn. What can I get done with this Planeswalker in this turn? So we're going to talk about 3 different categories, but really that's the only question you have to answer. Is like, what can it do if this is the only turn this Planeswalker sticks around?
Yeah, we've considered them like sorcery spells, because you can't, unless a Planeswalker, does any Planeswalker have Flash? Oh, the Wandering Emperor has Flash.
The Wandering Emperor has Flash, yeah.
Unless you can, flash them out, you have to consider them like a sorcery. And I think that the first category that we look at really when we think about them as just a sorcery is if they have one really good loyalty ability that can activate the turn they come down.
Big time.
And if that's all they do, that was enough.
Yes. So there's a bunch of these. I mean, I think we talked about Garruk Primal Hunter before.
That's the Life's Legacy on a Planeswalker.
I think this is fine. Like, it's the rate. It's a 5 mana. This is tough.
It's a bit overcosted.
It's a bit overcosted. I think most of the effects, like Momentous Fall, you get for 4, and this is instant speed as well.
Yep.
It's the same mana cost effectively as Soul's Majesty, which is this exact 5.
But it is a different a version of that effect. So if you're trying to run as many of these effects as possible, having Garruk in your deck is pretty good.
There aren't that many. Like, I play every one of these I feasibly can in my Mohu Loyal Companion deck, because this is a mono-green power matters +1 counters deck.
Yep.
And I play a Garruk in there because it's just another version of this effect.
Well, I brewed a Yargle and Multani CDH list.
Oh, yeah?
The vanilla 18-6. But I decided that this was CDH viable. It's probably not, but I thought that you could basically just run as many of these Life Legacy effects, because you basically end up running an Ad Nauseam in your deck, weirdly, because
Draw 18 is similar to an Ad Naus.
Insane. And in CDH, I ended up going, I need Garruk.
Yeah.
It's just another version. So there is not enough of those effects for me in a CDH brew to be like, I can do without the Planeswalker.
So I was casual.
5 mana, draw 18 is still pretty good. Yeah.
I think another example, look, these are all tough because these often have another good ability, and we'll go into the second category, which will be very much this. But Elspeth Sun's Champion is the one that has the down tick that just says destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater.
Board wipe.
Yeah, it's a 6 mana walker. 6 mana to do just that is fine. There's not really a comparable spell that does that. You get cards that care about every creature that's got power greater than this. You got power 2 or more, board wipes. I don't think there's another board wipe that specifically says destroy creatures with power 4 or greater. I think in a token list, this is just what you want to go for.
Yeah, and I think in a 4 or greater list, that's kind of, I like it because in those like really go wide weenie decks, a lot of the time you are running a bunch of anthems, but I've never seen them get above 4. Like
It's pretty rare.
Even like 3 is where I'd usually expect them.
Yeah.
So if you're destroying everything above what your white weenie tokens are, that's great.
You feel so good.
If you are a 1/1 soldier type deck and you're running Glorious Anthem and stuff like that, and you can see that you've got 2 Lord effects on all your 1/1s, and you've got Elspeth, that's a one-sided board wipe, effectively.
I mean, the other thing to consider in a deck like that is if you have the anthems and all of the soldiers, you're probably winning anyway, so you probably don't need to wipe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you have 5/5 soldiers, you don't want to Elspeth anyway. You're like, I'm fine, I can just start attacking for lethal.
But that is also really good, like, as an example to include in your deck, because you're in the right synergy, because her uptick also makes soldiers.
Yes, definitely. So basically we're thinking of this, because we're going to go into the second category in a sec. I think you can just you can think of these as just a sorcery that sometimes does something else. Because cards like Elspeth Sun's Champion, cards like Garruk Primal Hunter, like if it was just the sorcery, like we're saying, if it's just Soul's Majesty, if it's just, board
wipe for 4 or greater.
Yeah, just like slash the ranks or something similar, that's fine, and you would play that. But that one ability needs to be fantastic in this category. Like, it's so good that you would play it if it was just a sorcery that just did that.
Yeah, it needs to be on, like, there can't be a version of the effect that's cheaper, more efficient, at instant speed, or, like, on a creature or something like that. Have a look for your other options first.
Yes.
But if there's, like, you know, for example, with Garruk Primal Hunter, if there's if you're wanting as many of those effects as possible... then there's a good reason to put it in.
Definitely. And I would say in a very related category is this second one. Because even as we were describing those 2 we just did, I was like, these would also go in this second category. You can also play a Planeswalker if it has 2 very good loyalty abilities. So they don't have to be like incredible, but if you've got 2 pretty playable things, you can kind of think of this as like a modal sorcery.
Yeah.
Like Gix's Command.
Hey,
that's where it comes in.
He's not done a Planeswalker yet, but he did modal sorcery, which
kind of like a Planeswalker.
Kind of are.
So yeah, like the 2 abilities that you can access when one of these Planeswalkers comes down don't need to be like game-breakingly great, like Garruk Primal Hunter or Elspeth Sun's Champion, but they should be very good. So an example that comes to mind for me that I've played in some of my Enchantress lists before, it's not currently in my one, but I've played it before. Calix Destiny's Hand.
Oh, this bit of lore here. Calix is the only Planeswalker that didn't technically have a spark ignite.
Yeah, because he's a construct. He was made by the gods.
Clothis.
Yeah,
he was made by Clothis.
To track, it's Elspeth.
It is Elspeth from
it's Elspeth, right?
Yeah, so when she planeswalks away, Calix is like, well, my whole purpose in life is to planeswalk and to follow this person. Guess I have to planeswalk now.
Pretty whack. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like from a lore perspective that he was just like, my purpose is to follow Elspeth, so I will do whatever I can, including planeswalk. Apparently.
It also shows how busted and powerful the gods of Theros are.
Oh, like, big time.
Their power level in terms of lore characters in the Magic universes, they're got to be near the top.
So high. Yeah. So Calix Destiny's Hand is the 4 mana Planeswalker, because it's another Calix now. 2 green white. It's uptick. I think you look at the top 4 cards of your library, you can reveal an enchantment and put it into your hand.
Great card advantage.
Yeah, in the right deck, it's basically just draw a card for 4 mana. It's fine, but it looks at 4.
Selection.
You can select one. Yeah, it's kind of like scrying and then drawing almost. And then the downtick by 3, which still leaves him alive, is you exile non-land permanent, maybe, or creature or something, an opponent controls until an enchantment you controls leaves the battlefield. So you kind of turn one of your enchantments into like Cast Out or Oblivion Ring. Or, one of these kind of cards that exile something until it leaves the battlefield. You turn one of your enchantments into that.
It's pretty cute.
It's cool.
Yeah.
4 mana, exile pretty much anything semi-permanently. That's pretty good.
And like for 4 mana, that's not a... This is the other thing for me with Planeswalkers with these kind of modal abilities. They're like 2 options are pretty good. Look at the mana rate on these cards. Like Calix being 4 mana makes him pretty easy to slot in, whereas like Elspeth is 6 mana.
Yeah.
Like you got to be running basically nothing in your 6 mana slot in that white weenie token build to justify Elspeth.
Definitely.
But Calix in an Enchantress build, it's pretty easy to just splash him in.
Definitely.
4 mana's not a lot.
It's not. Like, you kind of got to compare the 2 effects and be like, okay, like, if I had a 4-mana spell in my deck that said exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield, cool, that's cast out. That's a card that exists.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly feasible rate. That one has flash, admittedly, like you got O-Ring, it's slightly cheaper. But then also, this is a card that says 4 mana, look at the top 4 cards of your library, get an enchantment. That's slightly overcosted. Both these effects are slightly overcosted, but this is the function of a modal spell, right? Is like, you can have 2 different effects that cost slightly too much, but if they're on the same magic card, cool, you got 2 things from the one card.
Yeah, I also think that, like, because that's obviously in your Enchantress deck, which
Yes.
is your Planeswalker commander.
Yeah,
Musk.
true.
I also think that when you're including these cards, there has to be a justification of how you can keep them protected as well. So,
Sure.
like, you know, you've got Sphere of Safety in
I
your
do.
in your deck,
Yeah.
and your deck is designed to protect your Planeswalker commander pretty well. So, I'm not saying you can only put Planeswalkers in Planeswalker commander decks, but when you're including it, the first thing you got to do is look at obviously the loyalty abilities, and if
Yep.
it's got 2, then look at the mana rate. Like I said,
Yep.
if you're ticking all the boxes so far, that's great. But the last thing that you got to think of is there a world? It doesn't have to be a likely world or even a guarantee world, just a world where it could stick around for maybe 2 turns.
Yeah.
Because if it can, then God, it gets a lot better all of a sudden.
Just Calyx being a 4-mana spell that says, look at the top 4 cards of your library, you can reveal an enchantment.
now gone 8.
Now exile an instant or source, exile something an opponent
Yeah.
controls until this thing leaves the battlefield. That for 4 mana would be cracked.
Cracking, like, oh my God. And even if it's like, the only thing you do is use the uptick of look at the top cards, you've gone 8 deep and got the best 2 enchantments from your deck.
Yeah, that's sick.
And like, think about it on like the following turn when you untap and you've got all the mana again.
Yeah, now you can cast some of those enchantments.
Oh,
yeah.
it's like if you can justify a world where your Planeswalker will stick around for 2 turns, then those 2 loyalty abilities
Yeah.
look even better.
They definitely do. They definitely do. So those are the first 2 categories I would say. There's like 1 really great ability or 2 very good abilities. There is a third category. I think this has still only been printed in the War of the Spark, I think. Is that right? Static abilities? Is it?
No, God, no. There are
Has there
much
been more
more.
since then?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
buddy.
okay.
Oh, yeah,
But
buddy.
most of them are from War of the Spark, I think.
Yeah,
There's been a couple
War of
since
the,
then.
the War of the Spark, like small planeswalkers. I think they're like mini planeswalkers where they only
Yeah.
had a couple of abilities.
Some of them don't even, they only have 1 loyalty ability and
it's
then
a
just a
down
static,
tick.
and that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But no, there are tons of planeswalkers with static abilities now. But yeah, this is like a thing of like, if this is directly synergizing with your deck, you're cooking with gas. son.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of think of these, if the other ones were like a sorcery and then a modal sorcery, I think of great static planeswalkers as like a kind of temperamental enchantment. Right?
Fragile enchantment.
A fragile
Yeah,
enchantment.
yeah.
Enchantment's pretty easy to remove, but nonetheless, an enchantment, right? It can sit on the battlefield.
Yeah, for sure.
An example from one of your decks, actually, Saheeli Sublime Artificer.
Oh, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a servo.
Non-creature spell.
Non-creature
Whenever
spell,
you cast
yeah.
a non-creature spell, make a servo, and then it has a down tick, which is also great. But like just that static of a 3-mana enchantment that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, make a servo, that's a playable card on its own.
Correct, yeah. And like the down tick on that planeswalker as well is choose an artifact you control. It becomes a copy of choose an artifact creature you control. It becomes a copy of target artifact you control. So you can have one of those servos turn into a Lux Cannon, for example.
Yeah.
Like, or just I'm thinking about a random one or a Dragon Spark Reactor, whatever you want.
Anything.
Like it just like that alone as like thinking about it as a sorcery and a static just for the turn.
Yeah.
It's also 3 mana. So like
Yeah, the
going
rate's so good.
3 mana for that. I'm going to cast 3 other spells this turn. 3
Make 3 servos, then down tick, get something. Yeah, the rate is really good. But yeah,
Very
like,
strong.
If just the static is enough, that can be enough to justify a planeswalker. Like there's the Kiora Behemoth Beckoner is also 3 mana. This is 2 hybrid Simic.
Kind of like a Garruk's Uprising, right?
Yeah. I think it's exactly Garruk's Uprising. When a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card.
Yeah.
And then it has a down tick, which is untapped target permanent. So it like ramps you as well. Sometimes ramps you a lot if you've got something that produces multiple mana, like a bounce land. That's great.
Or a One Ring.
Yeah. True. God.
I'm just trying to break it.
But just the static alone. Like, Garruk's Uprising admittedly has more text on it, but that's 3 mana for that effect of creature with power 4 or greater ETBs, draw a card.
And it's another version of the effect that you can put in your deck. Yeah.
Totally. And like, yes, again, it's a temperamental enchantment. It's one that someone can attack and remove. But if it's even if it's an enchantment that you could only have for 1 turn, if it's that good as just a static, then that can be justified in your deck.
Yeah, look, there are definitely more than just the planeswalkers from War of the Spark. Because I was already talking about the Tezzeret, the one that says those abilities of artifacts cost 2 less.
That totally is a
first time
static. It's weird because it's kind of doesn't feel like a static because it's only the first
It
time.
is a static.
But it is a static, yeah.
But there's also this new card that I want to shout out. It came out in Brothers War, which actually was a while ago now. But Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. I've been thinking of recommending this for your Azor deck for ages.
I've thought about it.
Its static ability is wild. Whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on him.
That's right, because he doesn't have...
What?
He doesn't have any upticks, does he? But he has a 0 tick, which is like...
Draw a card.
So then
Yeah.
it basically is an uptick.
Yeah.
But it also makes bodies with vigil?
Yeah, its down tick of 1, I think, is create a star... No, 2/2 with vigilance that whenever you draw a card, put a +1 counter on it.
Right.
It's cracked. And like I've seen this card in like card draw matter decks a few times in Commander, and it's really friggin' hard to kill.
Yeah.
This card ticks up in loyalty. Like if your whole deck is synergized around just drawing cards.
Oh, if you're a wheel deck, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it starts with 4 loyalty, and the ultimate is 12, which is target opponent.
Target board wipe, right?
Target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to its owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into its owner's library. Yeah,
that's backbreaking.
You wipe someone's board completely. And if you wheel, it's conceivable you could ultimate this the turn it comes down. Again, you shouldn't rely on this, but like just the 5 mana, draw a card, it'll get a loyalty counter, or down tick by 2, make a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a +1 counter on this creature. Yeah, it's going to defend itself pretty well.
And like, there's a couple of other static abilities that do similar stuff to this. I know there's a Nissa, the black and green Nissa.
Landfall gets a loyalty counter. Yeah,
and then there's like a Lolth that's whenever a creature you control dies, put a counter on it.
Yeah, that's
like,
the black Lolth. Yeah,
there's some really good synergies with Planeswalkers. If your deck is already doing a thing, these Planeswalkers get even better because the loyalty is going to go up, and it's going to be harder for your opponents to kill them.
Definitely. Look, I think those are the 3 main categories I would look to for a good Planeswalker. So again, it was 1 great ability, 2 very good abilities, and a great static. Obviously, the 4th category here, and we've sort of already alluded to this, if you have a combination of some of these categories in the same walker, it's even better. Like, Tyvar Jubilant Brawler is in my Babala Saga deck.
Oh, that card is very powerful. It's EDH playable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a 3 mana walker from memory, and it basically says that the static is very good. It says that you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. It upticks to untap a target creature. So again, if you have a commander with an activated ability like Babala Saga, just instantly activate Babala Saga, uptick Tyvar, untap it, do it again.
That's pretty cracked.
And then even the downtick by 2, mill 3 cards, return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah.
Not cracked, but it's pretty
synergizes
good.
with the deck. Yeah.
That I would put in that category of 2 very good abilities, and I would also put it in as a great static. If you can tick multiple categories on this list, it's even better, right?
Yeah, well, like the Teferi that I was referencing before.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're in a card draw matters deck, that's a great example.
The static's good, the 2 activated abilities are good.
I've been looking recently at Chandra Hope's Beacon. This is a 6 mana Planeswalker.
Okay.
Its static ability is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets from the copy. It triggers only once a turn.
That's double vision.
That's
the
double vision.
enchantment double vision is 5 mana, so that's similar rate to that already.
That's what I was thinking. But the uptick for 2 is add 2 mana in any combo of colors, which ain't bad.
Yep.
Uptick of 1, exile the top 5 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you can cast instant or sorcery spells from among them.
Okay, so kind of draw 2 or 3 cards, basically.
Which is pretty good.
Yep.
And then it has a downtick of X where it deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets. It comes in on 5 loyalty.
So you could downtick by 5 and immediately deal 5 to 2 different things. That's kind of pretty good.
It's like 6 mana, and on that turn you get to copy a spell as well. So like,
that's
if
pretty
this
gas.
just sticks around for a turn or 2, really strong. Also the art, unbelievably cool.
This is the one from Brothers War.
Yeah.
Or
the March of the Machine,
March of the
I think it
Machine.
was.
Sorry,
yeah.
yes, my mistake.
Yeah. Phyrexia Orby one? No, March of the Machine.
Yeah, no, Orby one. It's got that weird like circle.
That's
whatever
right.
it is.
But like, if you can see a couple of these things ticking boxes, you're like, hey, maybe I should experiment with this Planeswalker.
Definitely. So I think we'd be remiss not to mention the 3rd loyalty ability on most Planeswalkers, which is the ultimate.
Yeah. Usually, like, classically gives you an emblem or does some game-breaking thing.
I mean, we've mentioned a couple of this episode, like the Nissa that gets every forest out of your deck.
Yep.
There's a
Teferi gives you like 2 extra turns.
Yeah, there's some absolutely cooked ultimates out there. Look, the reason we're evaluating those Planeswalkers in those categories as how good are they the turn they come down is because you will very, very, very rarely ever ultimate a Planeswalker in Commander.
Yeah, I think I've done it maybe twice in my entire Commander career.
Yeah.
And like naturally, I'm not talking about combos. I'm
Yes,
talking
not deep blue
naturally
that kind of thing.
upticked to the point where the loyalty can downtick. Yeah,
I think when we've started playing, it happened more often because we weren't very good at evaluating threats and stuff. Like I ultimated a Vraska that said you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control
player death touch
deals combat damage to a player, they lose the game. That was absolutely cooked. Admittedly, that was when we were playing at a game store during COVID, and so we were like 2 meters away from each other.
No one could see what Vraska on what.
I ultimated it, and everyone was like, I forgot that was there.
It's because it's a meter away from you.
Yeah. But look, I think if you're including a Planeswalker, assume you'll never get there.
Yeah.
If you do, it'll be a fun bonus thing that sometimes happens. It'll be exciting, it'll be memorable. But when you're evaluating a walker and whether it should go in a deck, just ignore that ability, right?
Yeah. Basically, you put your finger over when you're thinking about putting it in a deck, just put your finger over that last ultimate.
Yeah.
And just go, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And again, assume you're just going to get one of any of the abilities that can happen as it comes in. You know, static or one of the uptick or downtick, whatever.
All right. I think it's time for a top 5.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Let's do it.
Let's do top 5.
Top 5 favorite Planeswalkers. And I reckon we should give just not a 5, but just a list of some Planeswalkers to avoid as well. So we might do that after. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do a top 5. I've got a list here. I reckon we should
prepared a list for this too.
Count down, right? Like our 5th favorite and then count down to 1. That's more fun, right?
Then number 1.
Yeah, what's number 1?
Look, there's one Planeswalker that fell off my top 5 that I want to make an honorable mention to.
Sure.
I've mentioned him already, but Ralzarek is my 6th favorite. He's my favorite looking Planeswalker, full stop. But
we covered the butt earlier today.
Yeah, but I think that he's really, really underplayed as an untapper in any Izzet deck.
Yeah.
Also, his ultimate ability, you could potentially take 5 extra turns.
It's fun as hell.
It's amazing. Like, that's one of the only ones that I've naturally got to its ultimate ability.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. I think I only ever took 1 extra turn from it or something like that.
That sounds right. It's family in your colors as well. This is a Planeswalker. Like, if someone was like, which Planeswalker do you associate most with James? It would probably be Ralzarek.
I mean, I modeled my whole image of him.
your current haircut
I did
pretty
do the
Ralzarek looking,
yeah,
actually.
That's true.
With a slightly more curly hair,
I mean,
maybe.
you look at the album art on our thing.
Yeah,
I look straight up Ralzarek.
It's pretty Ral.
Who's number 5?
My number 5 is the Planeswalker I know you play, actually. Xenagos the Reveler.
Oh.
This is the 4 mana... Is he... Okay.
I'll hold
You're smiling knowingly. All right.
Yeah.
So it's a 4 mana walker, 2 red green. I kind of don't remember what the downtick is. It doesn't matter. The uptick
makes a Satyr, I think.
It makes a 2/2 Satyr with haste. You're right. The uptick is add X red and or green mana, where X is the number of creatures you control. So it is fully, like, not a land, admittedly, but it is Gaia's Cradle. And for red mana.
Yeah.
It's cooked.
I am going to withhold some of my opinions about this card because it's on my list.
Oh, okay, sure.
So we'll get to it when we get to
your
it.
thoughts. But look, I just think, like, admittedly, I think red-green, you often go tall and not wide. But if you are in red and green and you are going wide, this card's just cracked. Like, it's 4 mana. It comes down. Sometimes it can be like, it's like a ritual, like a sorcery. Like, let's imagine a sorcery that's added red and or green mana and it added 10.
This is in my 5 Life World Sculptor deck. And
it's cooked in there.
It's just so strong. Like, if I've got 5 plants, it rituals me for 1 extra mana.
Yeah.
Because it's 4 mana, makes upticks. So it's like...
Even that is fine.
It's basically Soul Ring in that circumstance. But if I have 10 plants... and I play this for 4 uptick, I'm so positive on mana. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm saving my opinion.
Okay, sure.
My number 5 is going to Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh.
This is the one we talked about. So this is the one with the ultimate that is whenever you tap an artifact,
draw a card. Yeah.
What's the uptick is you make a power stone?
No. The uptick is you draw 2 and then discard a card. You discard 2 unless you discard an artifact. It's Thirst for Knowledge.
Thirst for Knowledge. It's straight up just the card Thirst for Knowledge.
Yeah.
It's got the static that's the first time you activate an artifact this turn, it costs 2 less.
Yes, and I can't remember what its middle ability is, but it usually
neither.
doesn't matter. But the reason I like this card is the card advantage and mana mana advantage stapled onto one card.
Yeah.
The fact that it does Thirst for Knowledge repeatably, even if you just get to cast Thirst for Knowledge twice in your game,
That's great.
Pretty good. And the fact that it's made something cost 2 less every turn. And by the way, it says every turn. So if you can activate stuff on your opponent's turns,
that's true. I've seen you use this, and especially with a card like
Clues.
Unwinding Clock. Oh, Clues.
Clues are great as well. Like
Clues literally crack for free. I mean, actually, I've just loaded it up on Scryfall. Its most recent printing is the Murders of Karlov Mana
Clue
Commander
Precon,
decks. Makes sense.
It was
just
great.
activate a clue for free every turn. That's cool.
It's cool, right?
That's
and I just
super
think
cool.
the card is like super underplayed, and the card looks cool. Tezzeret, like a really interesting character design with his metal arm. I
think
like it.
I think I would say that the appeal of this one is the static and the uptick, because the downtick by 2 is target artifact becomes an artifact creature.
Oh, it's a 4/4.
If it isn't a vehicle, it's a 4/4.
Yeah, it's
it's
not that good.
I don't know about that, but the just having the static and the uptick in one turn, 4 mana, draw 2, pitch an artifact, tap an artifact that costs 2 less. You feel pretty good about that.
And if it lasts 1 turn rotation, the value is paid for itself. You get double value from Thirst for Knowledge. You get an extra activation on Activate. It's good. I like it.
Sick. Big fan.
Number 4?
My number 4 has been mentioned already in this episode. Kiora Behemoth Beckoner.
Yep, the 4 creature.
Yep, so 3 mana. It's in Simic. Creature will have 4 greater ETBs, draw a card. Downticks by 1. I think it starts with like 6 loyalty or something crazy. Downticks by 1, untap target permanent.
Yep, so you can untap Gaia's Cradle or the One Ring.
Yep. Neither of those in my decks. Appreciate the thought, though. Look, just untapping a bounce land means that this spell cost you 1 mana that turn. Yep. I play it in my Cascade list, which admittedly cares a lot about big creatures being cascaded into and making 4/4s with.
And it's an ETB.
Baylots.
It's not a cast trigger, is it?
No,
so like
ETBs.
If you're just,
if you cascade
making
into
tokens.
Rampaging Baylots works great with this.
Damn, that's a good
really
synergy.
great with this. I just love it. It's like a great static, and the downtick is better than you would expect. Like, more of the time than you would think, you have more than 1 mana. Soul Ring.
Yeah.
Having a Soul Ring, having a bounce land, that happens a good chunk of the time.
Yep. My number 4, I'm going with Nissa Ascended Animist.
This is the Overrun one, right?
Yeah,
so this is the 5
it's
mana
more
or 7
cracked
mana.
than Overrun.
It is.
It's 7
in the
mana
right deck.
or 5 mana, depending on if you pay the Phyrexian mana cost.
There's 2 Phyrexian green in the cost. So it's like 3 green, and then Phyrexian green, Phyrexian green. Yeah.
And it comes in with either 5 or 7 loyalty. And the big part about the 7 loyalty is that's its ultimate ability.
Yeah.
If you pay the full cost for this Planeswalker, it can ultimate when it enters the battlefield. And its ultimate is each creature you control gets +1/+1 and trample for each forest you control.
Yeah, it fully just ends the game. If you are in green or a 2-color green deck, especially a lands deck, you play this in your Phylath deck.
I don't, actually.
Really?
I've been hunting for one because I want it in my Phylath deck.
It's pricey because it's in standard at the moment, and it's, I imagine, really cracked in standard.
Yeah, it's unavailable.
Yeah.
If you're playing Domain Ramp, you play this card.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you cast the Herd Migration and then play Nissa Ascended Animists.
I mean, also just like so many of the lands in standard at the moment are typed. Like the Triumphs are in standard. There's also typed jewels in standard. It makes sense. Yeah,
the
that card's
cracked.
great.
But the uptick as well, it creates a big body. So if you're just wanting to create big tokens in your deck, the uptick is pretty good.
Yeah.
It downticks to
naturalize right? Destroy an
something.
artifact or enchantment. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's
like
great.
all of the loyalty abilities are amazing.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's like a win condition.
Yeah.
Love this card.
It's just another copy of Overwhelming Stampede in the right deck. And that's great with more text on it. It's super good.
I actually think, to be honest, if you're in mono green, it's almost an auto include.
If you have the means, I would say, there's not really any reason not to be.
Even if it's like your commander's a 1/1, if
Who
you get
cares?
to turn 9 and you got 9 forests, that commander's now a 10/10 with trample.
You're
It's
probably just
cracked.
winning that game, definitely. My number 3 now is Ugin the Ineffable.
Oh, yeah, this is not the board wipe one. This is the one that makes colorless spells cost 2 less.
So he's a 6-mana walker for 6 generic. Colorless spells cost 2 less to cast.
That's
so
a great static already.
You play this in an artifact deck for sure, or
Yeah.
a colorless deck. You can play this in an Eldrazi deck
or
for sure.
a morph deck.
Oh, I have seen it in morph decks. It is fun there as well.
Morphs are colorless
on
spells
the stack,
on the
they are
stack.
colorless spells. Very cool. 1-mana morphs feel pretty sick.
It's really cool.
It's really cool. The downtick by 2, which leaves him alive, is destroy destroy target permanent that's one or more colors. It's overcosted to pay 6 for this, but it's fine.
It's an option on it.
Yep, and you can keep it. Like, you could feasibly untap with it after that and do it again.
Yep.
Oh, I don't think that turn. But you can get it again later. The uptick exiles a card from the top of your library face down. It's basically like a manifest, except that when that dies, the manifest creature dies. It's like a spirit. When it dies, you put the card into your hand. It's kind of very slow, weird card draw.
Yeah, and I don't, because it doesn't manifest it. It creates a token
and
that's
then
linked
when
to...
that leaves the battlefield, you put the card into your hand. But basically, you represent it with this card face down, and you go, if this goes anywhere, it goes to my hand instead.
It's a very bizarre card. But look, the static ability alone on that card is enough of a reason to run it.
And I think, like, making a relevant body as the uptick also means you can keep that static for longer, because it's a great chump.
And
body.
You chump it, you draw a card effectively. That's great. Creating bodies that protect your planeswalkers is a good feature of planeswalkers.
Definitely. And like, it's hard again still to defend them in Commander, but it's good enough. Look, it's mostly the static. I actually realized I'm not playing this in my Gandalf deck. You know what's made me come around to it? Planeswalkers are legendary. I can flash it in.
On end step, that's not bad.
That feels pretty good. Admittedly, you can't activate loyalty, it, but still, like, paying 6 mana before my turn to give all my colorless spells 2 less
for the turn you untap. Wow, that's pretty good.
That's pretty cool. I might give it a shot. Maybe see how it goes.
Just give it a run.
Yeah. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is another 6 mana planeswalker, Liliana Dreadhorde General.
Oh.
This card is expensive for a reason.
Yeah.
The static ability is just the best.
The highest upside static of any planeswalker. It's so good.
Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card.
Yeah. And
it's insane.
The even more cracked thing about it is the down tick is each player sacrifices 2 creatures.
2 creatures,
So it gives you the like, if you don't have a sack outlet and you have a wide board, not only are you edicting all of your opponents, you have the means that turn to edict everybody and draw 2 cards. That feels so good.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this as well is it's a zombie typal card, because it's uptick of 1, which is not that like good. Make a 2/2 zombie, but in my Scarab God deck, I love making just another zombie to drain my opponent. The ultimate, by the way, in this that I've never gotten off, but I dream of one day, is each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest.
Oh, it's basically
Tragic Arrogance.
Tragic Arrogance in black.
In black.
Wow. Yeah, no one's going to let you get that.
But it also says sacrifice, so it gets around indestructible as well, which is crazy.
Look, I think just the 6 mana, either make a zombie or sack 2 creatures, and then just the static. Just
draw a
creatures die, draw a card.
If you're an Aristocrats deck and you have the means to choose when your creatures die.
Oh yeah, any free sack outlet and this just feels like infinitely good.
Even if someone then goes to combat and is swinging a bunch at your planeswalker and it's flying, you can't block it, you're like, before it dies, let me just draw 10 cards real quick off it.
Why not?
Wild card.
There's no reason not to. My number 2 is Garruk Primal Hunter.
Yeah, I'd left it off my list purely because the fact that, I don't know, I think there's better effects that we should be running out there.
That's fair.
But it's another version of the effect, and it's just a cheap version to buy.
Yeah.
And it's there as well.
The uptick, I think we didn't talk about very much. It's also fine. It upticks and makes a 3/3 worm. If you have the means to defend Garruk and you're not ready to draw cards yet, upticking to make a 3/3 is fine.
Yeah. I don't look. You can populate tokens.
Yeah. I don't think it's busted. I don't think it goes in every deck, but I think in the decks that want to draw cards based on power, I think he's totally serviceable, and I like including him.
Yeah, fair enough. My number 2 is Teferi, Master of Time. I definitely wanted to put a busted one on my list.
This also breaks all of the rules that we talked about in terms of Planeswalkers being bad in Commander.
This card just straight up ignores all of what we just said because it can activate once every turn. And its uptick is card advantage. Like you draw 2, discard... No, draw 1, discard a card. So you loot every single turn. I used to run this in my CEDH Niv Mizzet list.
Oh, it's cooked there.
And like, there's a reason for that. It's also only 4 mana. Like, it should be 5. It should be 5.
It also defends itself so well because you uptick on, like, if you, let's say it comes down, it's got 3 starting loyalty. You uptick on your turn, so it's now at 4. If it goes to your next player's turn and they have a really great attack on Teferi, his downtick of 3 is target creature you don't control phases out. So you can just go 4 mana, drop this, loot, and then the next player who would have the opportunity to interrupt Teferi, you phase that creature out, you keep Teferi, next turn you're looting again, you might even loot all the way around that turn cycle.
This is very similar to what Shivan was saying about Rattlesnake cards.
Yeah.
It's one of those cards that's like, oh, it's really hard to deal with. I don't want my creature phased out. I'll let someone else deal with it.
Yep.
But if you don't, it's ultimate. Take 2 extra turns.
Yeah.
Game winning. You win the game.
Yeah. If you can set it up right as well, you can feasibly take 2 extra turns and keep Teferi, which means that by the time you pass to the next player, Teferi is going to be back at 3 or 4 again, and now you're back in exactly the same problem again. Absolutely cracked card in Commander, for sure.
It's wild. And the fact that there are like 100 different variants of the artwork.
It's the beginning of that particular era that
makes
we're in.
it so unique.
Yeah. I've got the purple one for reference. I would like to share my number 1 Planeswalker.
Drum roll, please.
It's pretty funny. It's actually not one I currently have in a deck, but I'm about to put it in one of my decks. And I played it once in a cube and just thought it was sick. It's even better in cube, probably, than it is in Commander. Elspeth Sun's Champion.
Oh, yeah, we talked about it already.
Yeah, 6 mana, you either downtick and destroy a creature with power 4 or greater, or you uptick and make 3 soldiers.
3 soldiers, yeah.
The ultimate is also not out of reach, and the ultimate is, I think, just creatures you control. There's an emblem with creatures you control get flying, or something cracked like that.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's busted.
I'm going to find it
flying
now.
or something?
Elspeth. Oh, there's so many Elspeths. Elspeth Sun's Champion. Yeah, so she starts with 4 loyalty. The downtick of 7 is you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2 and have flying.
That's wild.
So the turn she comes down, you get up to 5. And you keep in mind, you're making 3 blocks for her. It's feasible. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you can keep her for 3 turn cycles. And then,
if you're in a weenie deck where you got lots of chumps, Elspeth could potentially get you there.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a pipe dream.
It is a pipe dream. Look, I think just having, because you're a deck, you play this in a deck that cares about small creatures, right? A token deck. It's a 6 mana thing that makes 3 bodies. That's already a fine rate. Or it's just probably one of the best board wipes in your deck.
Yeah, for a weenie deck, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's sick. What's your number 1?
Well, if you were paying attention, you know what it is.
You haven't mentioned my number 5 yet.
I have put Xenagos the Reveler in my number 1 slot. And you know why?
Why?
I'm going on record. Xenagos the Reveler is budget dockside extortionist if you play it right.
Whoa, okay.
The burst of mana that you can get from Xenagos is just game ending. And I said that it was part of my Flylaff deck.
Yep.
It has been a part of my winning board state more often than it not being there.
Yeah. I've seen you so many times drop this, have 10 plants. It's the fact that it makes green or red,
yes,
right? Like
it casts any spell in my deck.
It fixes you for that turn.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you look at your hand and you're like, oh, I've got like 3 burn spells. They all cost like red.
Yeah.
And it's like, doesn't matter. Xena goes, I'll just add 8 red and have 2 green. Like,
it's just bonkers good. Like the scenario that I was saying before of like, if you have like 10 plants, right? And you uptick it, you've gone mana positive
by 6
that turn. That is paramount to a dockside extortionist, right?
Yeah.
Mana positive of 6, that's a dockside count.
Yeah.
If it stays alive, the next turn, you get an additional 6, or 7, or 8,
or 10 even.
Like,
it's conceivable.
The card is cracked, and the fact that it's the up to, I can't genuinely think of the last time I downticked it.
No, you don't ever make a 2/2 Satyr.
But like, its uptick is just cracked. It is genuinely my favorite Planeswalker ever printed.
This is a very clear example of that first category we spoke about, where like if a Planeswalker has one really, really great loyalty ability that you can activate the turn it comes down, doesn't matter. It fully does not matter what the rest of the card says.
Just consider it like a busted sorcery.
Yep, it's just an absolutely cracked sorcery.
Imagine if there was a 4 mana sorcery that said add any amount of mana in any combination of red or green for the equal number of creatures you control.
You play that card.
People would freak out over that card, but the fact that this is on a Planeswalker, everyone forgets about it.
I mean, there's that card, there's a 2 mana instant or sorcery. Well, I can't remember. I think it's an instant actually, but it adds red for each creature you control. I've seen that played in so many Spellslinger decks.
Yeah.
And that's just red, and it's like...
If you're in Teema, like, I don't know, maybe like this is a great card. I think it's because it's really hard to get into decks.
It's color restrictive, it's red-green, and also you have to be going wide. But if you are,
in the decks that it is, God, it's good.
Big time. This is a much shorter list. I feel like we should mention the Planeswalkers that we avoid or don't enjoy playing.
Oh, there's some obvious ones here.
I'm just going to straight up say, don't play Oko Thief of Crowns.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing CDH, this card is miserable. For those who have thankfully and luckily for you, repressed the memory of this card, its uptick is...
create a food.
Cooked. And then the down tick.
Oh no, it's up to...
I think it's uptick is target creature becomes a food or becomes an elk.
3/3 elk.
So you can't. The tech is you just do this to someone's commander, and there is nothing you can do about it. Your commander must in some way leave the battlefield. It has to die. It has to be exiled. It has to go back to your hand.
But it's a 3/3.
It's a 3/3.
No one's letting you. No one's going to block and kill your commander because they don't want to give it back to you.
No, and like think about how oppressive just Kenrith's transformation is. That's an enchantment. That's a card you can remove in some fashion to get rid of this effect. You can't do anything about Oko, and also Oko can then do it again the next turn.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's miserable. The uptick is just...
absolutely miserable
to play against. It's also so undercosted. Like, it's a 5 loyalty planeswalker that comes in for 3 mana.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's
stupid.
In arguably 2 of the strongest colors in Casual Commander, which is blue and green. Hate it. Don't play it, please. I would hate to see it in every game that I see it in.
I am going to put a warning out there for another CDH staple. Narset Parter Avails is the one that stops opponents, specifically opponents, drawing more than 1 card a turn. This is one of those, combine this with a wheel and you just win the game, but you win it in like 5 turns.
Yeah, a good pod will at least see this happen and go, cool, we're never beating that, let's concede.
Congrats, you win the game.
But like, the thing is, it doesn't actually win the game, and so sometimes you will have to play it out, and people have 1 card in their hand if you wield on your turn. Miserable.
Just a miserable experience.
Yeah, not fun at all to play against. I don't think Teferi Time Raveler should see as much play as it does. This is the 3-mana Azorius Teferi. Your opponents can't cast spells except anytime they could cast a sorcery.
And then it upticks to allow you to cast sorceries as if they had flash.
Yep, you can also downtick it to bounce someone's thing. I think it's an artifact or a creature and you draw a card. It's just... Look, I also don't think it's very good. I think you actually, in Commander, want your... you want at least some of your opponents to be able to interact, right? Or someone just gets turned off completely.
There's a big debate in CEDH at the moment about how like stacks lists are actively hurting everyone at the table because they're stopping people from helping someone not win.
Yeah.
Like, you got to remember that like the other people at the table are not only your opponents, but in weird circumstances, your teammates.
Yeah.
So if you say you can't interact with the board, when Tim is going off... and you're like, oh, guys, I can't interact, help out. And they're like, I can't help out, you played Teferi.
Yeah. It's like, Boromir is seeing a lot of play at the moment. If someone casts a spell and no mana was meant to cast it, you counter it. Like, if someone is going off and about to win... Cool. Like, James has a Pact of Negation in his hand. He can't activate that.
Yep.
Admittedly, the cool thing about Boromir is you can sack it. And so if someone desperately needs to activate
you can unlock a player.
You can unlock a player. But, I think in general, these permanents that sit on the battlefield and turn off people's ability to interact. I play a stacks list. I have to be very careful about who I'm turning off and how fast I'm doing it. Usually, you drop some sort of permanent, turns 2 players off. You desperately now need to find something that turns off player 3 or they will win.
Yeah. Spend the entire rest of your game finding whatever turns that last player off.
Yeah.
One last one from me.
Sure.
Sorin Markov. Just Sorin Markov.
The one that sets someone's life total to 13?
10.
10.
Yeah. Ooh. Just watch out for that. It's like, the reason why it's a bit of a feels bad as a planeswalker is, the down tick is usually all it does. Mm-hmm. So it comes in, down ticks, sets someone's life total to 10.
Yeah.
I run it in my Yuriko deck because my Yuriko deck is still casual, and if there's a life gain deck at the table, that's my out for them. But in any other deck, that is just miserable because it's targeted. You will immediately lose a friend at the table.
It so feels bad to play against every time. And I just think there's much more fun ways to influence someone's life total. It's just that classic, example of something that we talk about a lot in the podcast, of things that just feel like they invalidate parts of the game.
Yeah.
Like and being like, I've reached this great board state. I have all these creatures to attack with. Yeah. I'm probably going to win next turn. And someone's like, cool, your life total is 10 now. It's like, what could I have done about this?
Yeah.
Could I have planned for this? What is this?
My Yuriko deck's casual, but it's high-powered casual. Yes. And if it wasn't in a high-powered setting, I would just say, I'm never going to run this in like a mid-casual deck. This is miserable to play against.
I think it fits in with your Yuriko deck, but I agree. If you're below that sort of, high-ish end of casual, don't play it.
Yeah.
Look, Planeswalkers can be some of the most powerful cards in your deck, but most of them are probably not worth your time. If you want to play one, remember to evaluate their immediate impact on the board and think of them as a very weird sorcery if that helps your poor little brain. Wizards of the Coast might be done with Planeswalkers, but that doesn't mean you need to be. And we certainly aren't. So, Space Commanders, command received!
Nice. All right. Finally covered the forgotten child of Commander card types.
Yeah, it's so strange how little you see Planeswalkers relative to every other format of Magic, except Pauper. There are no common Planeswalkers, and that's a good thing.
Yet.
Yes, someone will do it. To the listeners, do you feel commanded, and who are your favorite Planeswalkers?
Yeah, and is it Ralzarek for the same reasons as me?
But...
face. Every aspect of that man's body.
The duality of man.
Look, if you want to tell us who your sexiest Planeswalker is, you can get in touch with us on your choice of social platform, @GetCommanded on all of them. But the best place to talk to us is live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GetCommanded. We are live every single Monday now from 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Very fun streams we've been having weekly so far. Some great guests coming up, which is really exciting.
Hyped about that.
And if you can't catch us live, you can always go subscribe to the YouTube channel because I'm uploading them every single week now.
Yep.
So you can check out all the shenanigans, and if anything, that'll make you want to join in live.
Yeah, definitely you will. And of course, the best way to support our podcast is over on Patreon. We'd be lost without our patrons. They've helped us do so many things, like those upcoming TikTok highlights. So thanks to them for this. We'd like to thank our patrons, Fuzzy, Bottomless Potamus, and Dyer, and an extra special shout out to Fletcher Cutting and Wizard Down Under. They support us in the Space Commander tier. They are the best.
You are the best. And also is the best is Puns of Gaming. I don't know why I'm doing this.
No, it's fun.
Puns of Gaming. They're awesome. These guys create really, really good deck boxes, sleeves, binders to protect all of your gaming accessories and stuff. Makes you look really cool too. They're like a suave gaming accessory company.
They'd be really good for playing over Spell Table, I reckon,
Yeah,
because of
for sure.
the blackout sleeves. Being black on the main side makes it so much easier to see what a card does.
Yeah.
It stands out, you know?
And helps Spell Table, which is not good at identifying cards,
God.
identify your cards a bit better.
Spell Table thinks that I play in a pod where a lot of people are playing Savannah.
Why is it always
It's
Savannah?
always Savannah.
No idea. It's ridiculous. But
So
you
funny.
can check out all these awesome gaming accessories at palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded. You get an extra 10% off on your purchase when you go to that link and you support the show at the same time. So that's palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded.
You have to think of what that sound is in the... Where's that on your keyboard?
It's just above the escape key.
Oh.
Just above the
Oh, yeah.
escape key. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know that key. Yep.
Yeah.
The hua key.
The hua key.
Oh, I'm losing this game of Commander. I'm going to hit the hua key. Oh,
key.
no, whoopsies. I meant escape. Escape. I'm going to quit this game right now.
Control Alt.
Yeah. Let's Planeswalk, James.
Oh, we actually get the most thematic Planeswalk
the
of all
most
time.
thematic Planeswalk ever.
Heck yeah.
Let's you can Planeswalk probably to wherever Ralzarek is. No, just kidding. Outside of Commander, outside of Magic, where are you Planeswalking?
We're going to Planeswalk to the passenger seat of a car.
Oh,
Specifically the front seat, passenger seat, because recently I have been a supervising driver.
Oh,
Yeah,
big boy.
I know.
Who likes to be large.
Very weird experience because I swear that it was only a couple of weeks ago that I was the learner driver being taught how to drive.
Feels like just the other day. Sometimes I think about the fact that me and you have our full license, and I'm like, nah.
Nah.
Well, who let us have that?
For those that are not familiar, in Australia, the learner process in Australia for being on your learner's permit is pretty lengthy. You have to record 120 recorded hours of driving.
Is it 150 now?
No, it's still 120.
Oh, went up from 100 to 120. Yeah.
So it's 120 hours of recorded driving where someone with a full license has to sign off on each drive you do. There's
you check the speedometer, you tell people, not speedometer, the odometer, how many kilometers you've done.
There used to be like a little book, but it's all on an app now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's all digital.
That's so much easier.
I know.
Oh my
I was like, wow, God, technology, right?
Yeah.
Where I was like so impressed. I was like, back in my day, we had to put it in a book. But so recently we've been looking after my boyfriend's little sister.
Yep.
And they're 17, nearly 18, so nearly at the point now where they're getting their going to go for their test.
Sure.
Got a couple of hours left to go, and just because I have my full license, I can supervise them.
Yeah, that's whack. Like, us having full
Weird,
licenses
bro.
is weird enough. The fact that there are people out there learning to drive from me and you. I want to be clear. We are good drivers.
Yeah,
I'm not going against that. It's just like the physical act of being
like
an
time
adult.
passing is so weird. But
and being an adult in the eyes of the law is just a very strange experience. Just being like, oh yeah, the law treats me exactly the same as a 70-year-old.
well, dude, you're closer to 30 than 25 now.
Shut the fuck up, you fucking dickhead.
Just pointing it out. In August,
it's
I'll be
true.
the same. But
Yeah.
It's really wild to think that I'm teaching someone how to reverse park.
Yeah.
When in my brain, I'm still remembering my dad being like, and when you can see the line in the window in the rearview mirror, that's when you start straightening up your wheel.
Last Tuesday, when James learned how to reverse parallel park, or it feels like it.
It feels like it. It's just one of those kind of things that just recently has made me go, wow, time is really going by quickly.
Yeah. No, that's sick though. I mean, it's cool. You're a very good driver, so I'm glad that there's someone out there learning from you.
Oh, glad. I'm glad. Well, you haven't died in the passenger seat of my car yet, so...
Look, I've gotten in the car with a lot of actors. That's all I'll say on the subject. Look, I've taken my life into my hands. You get in the car
and you're holding that, like, thing on the top of the
handle
window.
above the door. Yep, big time. Look, just like people's awareness of where they are in a lane. Sometimes you're in the passenger seat and you're like...
You're really close to the end of the road. You're really close to the end of the road.
When
you're really
you pass a fire hydrant, it's like if I had my hand at the window, I'd high-five that fire hydrant.
My hand would still be on the fire hydrant.
Like sometimes, they veer around a pothole and it's like you were like an inch away from the gutter and you were traveling at 70 kilometers. Anyway, I'm glad that they're learning from you and not some of the people I've met in my life.
That's what I just wanted a Planeswalk to highlight that we're getting old.
We're getting old. It's true. That's all we have time for. We'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
GOODBYE Commander Players.
Hey, you can spell too. Bye. BYE.